Well, now let's go back to those allegations of atrocities in Sri Lanka and the further evidence, both verbal testimony and photographic, that there were atrocities carried out in the aftermath of the defeat of the Tamil Tigers a year ago this week. The Sri Lankan ambassador to the United Nations, Dr. Palitha Kohana, joins us now from New York. Ambassador, kill everybody, finish them off. That is what one of the military commanders who had to carry out some of these killings told us on this programme. There is continuing evidence that there were atrocities carried out by the military on the heels of grave atrocities carried out by the Tamil Tigers.
The government has just appointed a commission of inquiry under the Commissions of Inquiry Act to go into this type of allegation. It will have a wide mandate, and I think it's appropriate for us to let that commission of inquiry do its job rather than preempt what it's going to do or the evidence that it will call before it.
Why should anybody outside Sri Lanka have any confidence that this commission will be fair and balanced in its approach to this task?
I think it's simple. Sri Lanka has a history of a very highly respected judicial system. And I have no doubt that this Commission of Inquiry will conduct its inquiries in a satisfactory manner. And to suggest that anybody from outside can do a better job, I think it's simply colonialist. That era is gone now.
Well, every time we have produced evidence on this programme of atrocities carried out by your military in pursuit of the Tamil Tigers and the civilians who died at their hand, you've denied, either you've said that the films were faked or you've denied the evidence that we produced, and it's taken the United Nations itself to verify that the material that we produced has been genuine. Why should we therefore trust the same government to carry out an inquiry?
I think it's not the government that is carrying out this inquiry. It's an independent commission that is carrying out the inquiry. And secondly, evidence, as you call it. Well, there is a lot of doubt as to the type of evidence, the nature of the evidence, and the veracity of the evidence that has been aired on this channel.
Well, you have a fine tradition in Sri Lanka of independent journalism. But every independent journalist that has reported in detail about what's been going on in terms of the military's activities against the Tamils has either been locked up or murdered.
Every independent journalist?
Yes.
There are over 70 media channels operating in Sri Lanka. And if every independent journalist had been murdered, how are they continuing to operate?
I said every independent journalist...
Read the Sun.
Every independent journalist who has reported in detail on your atrocities perpetrated against the Tamil Tigers has either been murdered or locked up, one of whom has been locked up for many years.
Which one? Which one has been locked up for many years?
Well, I don't have his name to hand, but you know perfectly well who I'm talking about.
I think when you make allegations of this nature on air, one has to be a little careful. I'm not aware of any journalist who has been locked up for years. In fact, a journalist who was convicted by the courts for terrorism-related activities, like they tend to get convicted in other countries, has just been pardoned by the president. And so I think you have to be extremely cautious.
Well, you're splitting hairs between people who have been...
Abuse of privilege.
Yeah, it's perfectly easy...
I think it's an abuse of privilege. Abuse of privilege to use a publicly watched television channel to make that sort of allegation without any evidence to back you up.
Ambassador, we're talking about Amnesty International, we're talking about the International Human Crisis Group, we're talking about Human Rights Watch. These are credible world organisations, and the United Nations Security Council itself. Each of them has come up with credible evidence of this abuse. And basically, your government has consistently denied it. Again,
you're being very liberal with the truth. The United Nations Security Council has not addressed this issue, not once. So I think you're being very liberal with the truth.
The Secretary General himself launched an inquiry into film that you said was fake and which then turned out to be a completely genuine account of your troops assassinating Tamils, civilian Tamils.
If I can correct you on that, the Secretary General refused to associate himself with that inquiry. It was conducted by a special rapporteur in Geneva, and the Secretary General refused to associate himself with that. So I think let us stay with the truth. Let us stay with the facts. This is not a propaganda opportunity for you or for me. If we stay with the facts, I think the world will breathe a little more easily.
Ambassador, thank you very much indeed for joining us.